Hi, everybody. This is Kara with Senior and Disability Services. And today I am joined by Kat, Care Coordinator Liaison. And I want to welcome you to our provider info share. And this is a chance for providers of all types to, for us to reach you with information about of topics of concern, and all providers are welcome, of course, and that includes care coordinators. So we're just sort of waiting for a few folks to come in here. Let me change my presentation. Let's see, change my presentation view while we are waiting, and then I can show my screen, which is of course just our agenda. And welcome to you. I'm pretty sure everybody knows how the webinar works. It's a little bit different than Zoom. GoToWebinar, you can interact with us by text chat. So if you see an area where you can text in, if you don't see it, you could probably find your little taskbar, which has different buttons that you could open, small icons that you can open, and it should say text or questions, or perhaps chat. So that's what you would do when you want to interact with us here today. And we have a pretty simple agenda. Well, folks already asked us to email the handouts, which we'd be happy to do so. We do have handouts available to you in the webinar itself. You could see where it says downloads or handouts. You can download them from there. And if you are unable to do so, that's okay, because we email them too. We also record this webinar and put it onto our YouTube channel. So there's another chance for you to engage that way. Could be that your device doesn't open files like PDF. If you're on a tablet or a phone, sometimes they don't. That's okay. So today we're going to talk about the following things. We're going to talk about the care calendar, and we're sharing this with us because for providers, you may have DSPs who, end up fulfilling parts of the care calendar and answering questions on a care calendar form. Sometimes families might need to do this. It is quite rare. If there's any one takeaway from it, today would be to know that it's requested under special circumstances, not all the time. So this is not something that you have to do for everyone that you serve. This is when SDS asks for it. And they could ask for it if there are complex combinations of services. And that would it really helps us understand more about who supports the person and how they're supported each day. And then certainly if there's an acuity request, we do ask for those then. So we ask the care coordinator to fulfill the care calendar, and then the care coordinator should get with the provider staff, provider agency about that. So it's a team effort, but it is not required for every single scenario for a person. All right, so that's what to know basically there. Let's take a quick look at the care calendar instructions. These are a part of your handouts too. A care calendar is really just used to understand supports that a person needs to navigate their day. It is not just waiver supports, it's all supports. So we can get a good picture of a person's day if a person has family caring for them or somebody else in the picture that provides some care that is perfectly okay. We just want to know what that looks like. So we might request a complete care calendar when we look at an initial or renewal support plan. We may see a need for a care calendar by looking at notes from SDS on the cover of a previously approved plan, and that would just be, that's a way of expressing that somebody has left a note for us on the previous plan that says, things were changing, the person seemed to need more support. We talked about this before, and then, they're referring to that on a new plan or previously approved plan, not new, but the newest plan, I should say. And Our planning teams sometimes work on high levels of support, such as an acuity request. That is going to also have us ask for a care calendar. It's important to know that a care calendar is not the same as service notes. Okay, service notes are for the waiver services that were done, of course, and they're very helpful. But it's a little bit different. It's just a listing of care provided to that person, not in depth as service notes would be, and includes other supports that are not, paid supports if present in the person's life and regular day. So a care calendar is done in real time. So that means throughout the day, it should include their daily routine, like their rest and sleep times as well, supports that are needed throughout the day. Each person providing support should log and initial their entry. Plan on working on 2 weeks worth of 24-hour supports listed in a care calendar. Right? So that helps give us a very complete picture of what this looks like. Okay, there may be additional directions. So a care coordinator might say, hey team, we had another question about this. Let's get back together and provide additional explanation. So it's hard to say specific examples, but generally if the picture isn't complete or there's holes in the story, then a care coordinator will work with you about getting that information. So we can look at the form itself briefly. There's pages that include the recipient's name, Harmony ID number, which of course a care coordinator can provide. Don't worry if you don't know that. Some of our providers work in or with Harmony and the ID number is known. Sometimes it is not. The support plan start date and end date, and the date that was recorded, the week, day, and the date, like Wednesday, November 13th, 2023. Okay. Each entry can be handwritten. If it is not handwritten, then that's okay. We just need to have the level of detail that we're asking for here. I'll show you the form in just a second. Indicating start time and end time of each activity. And by activity, we don't mean, waiver activities or day hab activities. It's just a generic word for something that is happening that day, even if it's sleep. Okay, it's not really, sometimes people get confused about, well, they didn't go out for any activities today, or they didn't do anything out of the ordinary. That's okay. Activity means ordinary thing, okay? Whatever is happening. And if it is a waiver service, great. If it is an activity, great. It's all activities. Okay, each line equals a 1 hour block. Please write down what you do to help the person, each 15 minutes of each hour. Rounding it to quarter-hour units is acceptable, and the total hours for the day accounts for 24. All right, and so a little bit more about activity. Sorry if that changed a little bit, the size. Be brief but specific for activity. And let me make this a little bit smaller. Detailing the activities and supports that need to accomplish them. If it's sleep, you can put nap, downtime, sleep, rest, something like that. Detail when multiple activities happen within an hour time block in the activity description. There is an example we'll look at in just a second. If the person gets PCS or CFC PCS and residential HAB services, right? That would be if they have a PCA and they have in-home supports or supported living. Make sure to list the tasks that the providers do during each time period. That would be separate providers, right? None of those particular services are going to happen at the same time of day. There'll be separate times of day, but just make sure that it's written. Funding source just means the kind of service, or if it's a natural support. Sometimes it's confusing if you see funding source, or if you're working with a family, they may not understand that part of it. don't worry. It just means what is the service, or if it's a natural support, just put, family or something like that. All right. Setting, indicate whether the activity occurs in the home or outside the home. And provider information, that means the person who helped them, their name, relationship, and initial. All right, so here's an example. And I'll go make it a little bit smaller so you can see the whole thing. All right, so 12 a.m. to 1 a.m. There's a little bit of a detail put down about this, about the sleep of a person, this particular person living in the group home, right? Funding source, waiver, or you put the kind of waiver if known, right? And then the DSP, their name, and their credentials. So here we have 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. sleeping. That's okay. It doesn't have to be every 15 minutes for sleep time. 6 to 10 a.m. sleeping when staff arrived. Another DSP's here, different name. Woke up at 10:15, morning routine. As you can see, these are pretty brief notes about what happened each hour, just to get a picture. And it's not detailing the service itself with goals and objectives and things like that. It is a list of things that happen to help that person, during their day. Okay, who did the helping and what was done. This one's a little bit interesting. It says store. That was where the person went to a store. Okay. They looked like they had a hard time between 12 and 2. They began to escalate by shouting and walking away, right? 12 to 2, used coping skills, took a break, all right? And here's a different one, recipient Jane Doe, as you can see up at the top, right? Support plan start and end. And then we have the different lines for the day. 12 to 1, feeding, repositioning in bed, different kind of care. This was done by someone at home. This is by mom at home, so natural support. And then CFC PCS came in to do this work, and the work they did. So 3 to 4 a.m., 4 to 5 a.m., 5 to 6:30 a.m., and 6:30 to 7 a.m. So that it's as you can see, there's an amount of judgment, available to fill out the care calendar. Again, it's not meant to be, a super burdensome process. We're just trying to get a good snapshot where we can understand more about the services that are provided and when they're provided, and some basics about what happens, what might contribute to the need for different care, or how this person is supported during different complex care scenarios. And that's basically it, what we're looking for in the care calendar. And we do have an example of the actual form here. Again, it is not going to be something that you're going to do for every person. This is going to happen upon request, but hopefully you'll be better empowered to help with it, work with a team, including a care coordinator and your staff, and perhaps a family member, to provide a care calendar where it may be that they request 2 weeks worth. It may be that they request less than that. But we just say when we train it to plan on 2 weeks. Think about it as a 2-week thing. Okay. Do you have questions or thoughts? If so, please write them in the chat area so we can respond to those.
I'm just going to add really quickly, Kara. So the form is on our forms website. It's on the very, very bottom. And this isn't new, right? I'm sure some of you have seen versions of it. We just have not had a standardized version that was a form, that was a formal, official kind of SDS form. So I know there are kind of different versions that were floating around and folks were making kind of their own, but we finally got around to creating this one. So it is on our forms website. The instructions are also there. And like Kara said, you don't have to do it unless it's requested. And it should be requested with some notice. So you'll typically have it, like Kara said, there will be a note on the plan that comes back as approved from SDS saying, at renewal, please submit. So, if there could be circumstances where reviewers are requesting it kind of with amendments, but they're also going to give you ample notice to complete those. And like Kara said, typically you might see a request for 2 weeks, it might be less. There really shouldn't be requests for 30 days or anything like that. I think folks get case notes confused with the care calendar because we are talking about documenting 24 hours every 15 minutes. So, and this is why we're saying it could be handwritten because it might be easier for a provider to just be able to jot down, or parent or whoever, just jot down some notes as they're working. But if you go on our forms website, it is on the very, 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 very bottom. You have to scroll all the way down to find
So
it, but it's there. So it's not new. It's new on the website. It's not new as a concept.
okay, and there it is down here. Care provider, whoops, 24-hour care calendar. And yep, care calendar here and the instructions at the very bottom. That's on our approved forms page. Thank you.
And as a plug, make sure to check that page kind of periodically for forms. Sometimes forms get updated.
Mm-hmm.
There may not be an e-alert about it. Sometimes there are minor changes, like the logo changed or other things. So make sure to use the most updated forms. And it's always best practice to look on the website to see if you have the most recent form and the most updated one. And if there's issues with the forms, which sometimes there are, let us know. You could email me at Care Connection Support or email training, and just let us know that there's something wrong with the form, that it's not working, and we will get that corrected.
Absolutely. And it's also helpful to know a little bit about how the website works. I do get a lot of communication from folks where, they're frustrated because they cannot find links, or there are links around that, that they're looking for training and it's not there, that type of thing. Make sure that you periodically use a search engine to find the current copy of the page. It may be that there's a practice of maybe saving a bookmark from a long time ago, or having it on a separate computer that a few people can access. That means that the bookmark is old. And so every time there's an update to our website, it takes you to the old website and not the newest one. So if you're having trouble finding things, you might just try searching us again. Just use Google or whatever you want to use. Put in Senior and Disability Services, State of Alaska, and you should find it. And that'll help you get the most current copy of the website that's up. Question says, so for acuity and group home, they don't keep 15-minute documentation. What's your solution? My best thought here is go back to the instructions for the care calendar. If we're requesting a care calendar, what we want the staff to do is to follow the care calendar. So it may be possible to talk about when the person was asleep and use that as a few hour block. But we need to have a accurate picture of what supports look like in a one-liner, without service notes and without interventions and things like that. What service applies was the next question. This will apply to all services if requested, but you don't have to do this as a regular thing. It's only by request. You don't have to put all the details of the service. Say that the person was getting day have or supported living, getting respite, that type of thing. It's a list of services that the person is getting. with a picture of what contributes to the acuity, if it is for an acuity request, or something else. However, the directions come to the care coordinator, they'll be able to share that with the agency and the staff and family member if that is applicable.
And this doesn't replace case notes. So this is not
Correct.
to say that case notes shouldn't be done, and that speaks to the first question you asked. Case
Mm-hmm.
notes should still be done, and if that's not done, then I would do a QA report if
Mm-hmm.
the provider is not
Mm-hmm.
following the conditions of participation. But this is not replacing case notes or any kind of other
Mm-hmm.
documentation. This is an additional documentation.
Right. Exactly. They're different than case notes entirely. Different than case notes. So for the 24-hour services, such as group home, they are not 15-minute units. So we don't write for them or ask for them based on that. They're a 24-hour day. So we ask that the provider document goals, objectives, and interventions that were applied that come from the approved support plan during the day. And most often we realize that people do have downtime when they're in the 24-hour service. So that's why it's described a little differently. But Kat's correct. They're completely different than service notes. Service notes are still required. We wouldn't accept service notes instead of the care calendar. So, okay, great questions. And I appreciate that a lot. And the rest of our agenda is here. A reminder, if you have not already, to sign up and make yourself a learner account in our training academy, SDS Training Academy. We are migrating all of our trainings out of our Google Docs site into our training academy. So there's a new training in there, which we probably have reminded this group about before. It's about provider certification. If you haven't got a chance to take it, I would say go for it because it gives us an updated knowledge about the certification process, complete renewal packets, and the possibility of not having to renew certification every 2 years after the first year. It's possible to get onto a cycle where you actually renew less times, meaning more years in between. But the video does explain it. It's a bit of a reg change, not an essential change, but it's around the certification application and reapplication process. So that's a good one that's there. Upcoming trainings in our academy will be community first choice training. It has been a long road to be finished with this training, yet we are almost done. So we'll have 3 levels, 3 courses within it. Intro to community first choice, meaning what is it, who it's for, what services are in it. Community first choice for providers, which is some understandings around how it would blend yet stay separate from other services the person might have, and some administration concepts around community first choice. And then CFC tasks in Harmony, and that would be targeted towards care coordinators. So this will be a CEH class for our care coordinators, and we're in the process of getting it finished. It is a grand project that Delight has worked very hard on. Delight's not here today, but yay for her. We're super proud of this training and that it's going to be available very soon. And just to know that the vetting process and the verification process touch so many teams is why it takes such a long time for this type of training to be developed. We have trainings coming up about documenting services, just requirements around documentation, and then documenting when working with acuity or complex behavior collaborative or perhaps applied behavior analysis professionals, folks who are working with a person who is in a treatment plan around CBC or ABA, and perhaps acuity-based supports. We need more specifics in documenting, and they're a little bit different than both regular service notes and the care calendar. So like, get that out of our mind. It's completely different. That's just a list. But more in-depth documentation training around those special situations when serving people who need higher levels of support. Habilitation services, a training about just these kinds of services. And until it is ready, we do offer a workshop model. So if you wanted to have habilitation service training, you would just email us at sdstraining@alaska.gov. We will give you study materials and you will develop some questions to interact with us during your workshop session. You'll choose a workshop on a Thursday during our provider info share, and we'll work directly with you. And then you will have habilitation services training until we have it available in our academy. And by the way, you can always come to our provider weekly office hour. It's available to all providers. So we welcome you, whether you're doing that kind of training or even if you're not yet a provider, but you want to get some ideas and have questions and things like that. We welcome people there. It's all good. We're working on restrictive interventions training, vetting process with our nursing staff and assisted living licensing as well. Medication errors and PCS or waiver services, day habilitation regulations, post public health emergency and end of public health emergency, and more. So too many to list here, but these are kind of the ones that are coming up sooner than later. We do have a few things up. Well, we have one thing up on our YouTube channel. We're working on having some videos available for pretty much anybody, the provider community, and then our individuals and families, or maybe even our DDRC, ADRC group, general information about services. Okay, so the first kind of thing we have with that is, what is a waiver? It's a little lengthy. It's about an hour, but it's there. We want to have shorter videos that are more accessible, available to, like I said, anyone. The general public could look at them and understand our services. But again, it's a work in progress. We always will always be adding to these. And then in August, we'll have one about environmental modifications, otherwise known as EMOD, and a care calendar basics, just like we just had. Number 3 on our agenda was our provider office hour Zoom. Please remember to join us then. It's every Thursday, 3 to 4, and just come on into our Zoom. We do have encrypted breakout rooms. Should you have questions involving private health information, protected health information, we can make sure that they're private, and we can coach you individually. Okay. All right.
The only thing I would add, Kara, is maybe, we're super proud of our learning management system. And it's unique and kind of long awaited. If you want to share how many users we have.
Yeah, sure, I can do that. Yeah, our learning management system is otherwise known as an LMS, but we just call it the Academy. We got our learning management system probably about a year ago. We've been working at it to put things in and to get users in. And it's not, I know that we have folks here from a certain population, service providers, but we have many, many, many more people that need to engage in our trainings, and not the least of which would be our internal staff, including our Pioneer Home folks. No state staff could complete our Google Docs trainings because the state is blocked from Google Docs. But that notwithstanding, we really love our LMS for other reasons, because it helps you. You can have your own user registration. You can access your certificates of completion. We went from 0 to 30 users, I think, in the first day that we put it out, but now we have 804 users in our LMS. These are all people who have a username and a password. It is individual. There's no such thing as an agency one. Each person who works at an agency, we target the administrative staff because that's who we work with. It's always been the case that we always have taught our program administrators. Um, but it's pretty significant to have that many people in there in the first year. And it continues to grow every day. I mean, earlier today I looked at it, it was 800. And then I looked at it a couple hours later and it was 804. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, it's a really great way to manage your own learning. You can see the classes you took, you can see your certificates. Eventually, when it comes to do some management around our eThink site, this is the link to it right here. We'll have to get with our community about access to it. For example, if somebody doesn't go in there for a year or more, we might make a process where we cancel their account, but they can establish a new account if that happens. So that's probably what will happen. We may also be able to make our learning management site bigger. So it's kind of, we want to make it bigger, of course, but if that doesn't happen, we'll have to do some management around it. But that's okay. It's pretty much like other LMSs that you might have already engaged with. If you're in school or use Blackboard or something like that, you might already be familiar with that. All right. Well, thanks, Kat, for taking care of people in the question box too. What other questions or thoughts do you have? Anything around the care calendar or around training? Do you have ideas for training that you would like to see happen? What are your thoughts? Write them in the chat.
Or you could send us an email if you can't think of anything right now.
Always. You can always email us, sdstraining@alaska.gov. We'd be more than happy to, receive your email and your thoughts about training. I didn't write it on here, but it's pretty easy, sdstraining@alaska.gov. And we don't have to stay here for the entire time. If we're done, that's okay. We do put up a recording for later. So, if you have coworkers who needed to listen in and they missed it, don't worry, because it goes up on our website. I mean, on our YouTube channel as well. So, and I know it's nice and sunny out, so I don't want to keep anybody from
I was just gonna say,
in Anchorage.
you can go enjoy the sun in the Anchorage Valley area. It's
Yeah,
been a while.
yeah, yeah. I'll give a minute or two here, then I'll call it. Okay. So if you want to ask us a question, go ahead and throw that into the chat. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and call it. All right. It looks like folks are leaving, so it's probably their way of saying that they just want to be done. All right, I'll go ahead and call it. Thank you, everybody, for attending here and participating with us. And we'll send your agenda and handouts by email. So look for that. And if you ever have any questions for us, you could drop into our Zoom each week or a week that you choose, or just go ahead and email us at any time. All right, thanks and have a great rest of the week, everybody, and goodbye for now.